Dear soul, if these words have found you today, do not dismiss them as coincidence. Do not scroll past them with a hurried mind or set them aside for a quieter moment that never seems to arrive. There are moments when heaven chooses silence, deep and wide and full of meaning. And there are moments when heaven chooses whispers, gentle and deliberate, arriving through unexpected paths, through strangers, through songs, through words on a page that somehow speak directly to the center of everything you have been carrying. This is one of those whispers. It was searching for you before you ever found it. Whatever season you are walking through right now, whether it is bright with hope or heavy with uncertainty, heaven sees it entirely. Not just the surface of it. Not just the version you present to the world with a composed face and measured words. Heaven sees the whole of it, including the parts you have not yet spoken aloud, the questions you ask in the middle of the night, the doubts that visit you when the house is quiet, the longing for something you cannot always name. Every thread of your experience is known. Every unwitnessed moment is remembered. And this message arrives not because you have arrived at perfection, but because you are further along your journey than you realize, and heaven wants you to know it. Your looks and your age have shocked many people, and they cannot fully explain why. They search for ordinary answers because ordinary answers feel safe and manageable. They reach for simple explanations, for genetics, or lifestyle, or the particular way you care for yourself. Yet every explanation feels incomplete, like a key that almost fits the lock but never quite turns. So they stand there, slightly puzzled, slightly disarmed, searching for words that seem to dissolve before they can speak them. Some smile softly and say you look like a secret heaven has been hiding, tucked away carefully until exactly the right moment. Others pause a little longer, studying you with quiet eyes, and wonder privately whether time simply moves differently around you, whether you have somehow stepped outside the ordinary current that pulls everyone else along. And a few, without even understanding why, feel an unusual sense of peace when they are near you, as though your presence reminds them of a promise they made to themselves long ago and nearly forgot, a promise about hope, about perseverance. About the possibility that something good is still coming. You have noticed the lingering glances. You have received the unexpected compliments that arrived at moments when you were not seeking them. You have heard the curious questions wrapped in humor or wrapped in genuine wonder. You may have thought they were simply being polite, offering the social kindness that people sometimes extend without deep intention. But something in you sensed it was more than that, even if you could not explain it either. Heaven is here to confirm what that quiet sense already knew. There is something deeper taking place. True light is rarely recognized by the person carrying it. The flame cannot see its own brightness. It is always the people standing nearby who first notice the room has become warmer. There are souls who spend years, sometimes entire lifetimes, searching desperately for beauty. They believe it exists only in symmetrical features or the particular smoothness of youthful skin. They chase it through mirrors that never offer enough reassurance and through comparisons that always find some new way to diminish. They invest enormous energy in the hope that if they can only achieve the right appearance, something inside them will finally feel settled, finally feel worthy, finally feel seen. Yet heaven measures beauty by an entirely different standard, one that the world does not always teach and that advertising never sells. In heaven's measurement, beauty shines through kindness before it ever shines through a smile. It appears in patience before it appears in appearance. It deepens through compassion, grows through wisdom, and multiplies through the kind of hope that refuses to die even after it has been disappointed many times. This is not the beauty that photographs easily. It is the beauty that lingers after you have left the room. It is the beauty that people carry home with them without understanding exactly what they are carrying. That is why some people cannot adequately explain what draws them toward you. They came expecting to admire what is obvious and measurable. Instead, they find themselves remembering your face long after the conversation ended, recalling your words precisely when they needed encouragement most, feeling a strange comfort from what seemed at the time like an ordinary exchange. You gave them something real, something that reached below the surface of small talk and social pleasantry, and they are still holding it. Some have quietly said to themselves or to others, there is something different about them. They cannot always say what that something is. They simply know that the feeling they have in your presence is not the feeling they carry everywhere. Others have wondered aloud, why do they seem so calm in the middle of chaos? They have watched you move through difficult circumstances with a steadiness that puzzled them, not because you were pretending the difficulty did not exist, but because something within you had learned to breathe even inside the storm. That quality is not something manufactured. It was built through every season when you had no choice but to keep going and discovered, gradually, that you were stronger than the season. And a few have even joked with affection that you must know the secret to turning back time, as though you possess some hidden knowledge that others are still searching for. But heaven smiles at every one of these questions. Heaven smiles because the greatest secret has nothing to do with time. It was never about the calendar or the mirror or the number of years accumulated. It is about the Spirit. It has always been about the Spirit. A joyful spirit leaves traces of light everywhere it travels. Not because it announces itself loudly, but because light cannot be contained. Even when it moves quietly, it changes the color of the room. A hopeful heart softens weary souls that had almost convinced themselves there was nothing left to hope for. A gentle presence becomes permanently unforgettable in a world that moves so quickly that most encounters leave no impression at all. You leave an impression. That impression was shaped over years of choosing love when resentment would have been easier, choosing patience when frustration would have been understandable, and choosing to keep believing when giving up would have been entirely justified. Perhaps you have carried burdens that no one else ever fully knew about. Perhaps you held your composure in public and then sat alone with a weight that felt too heavy and too private to share. Perhaps there were entire seasons when you questioned your own worth, when you wondered whether you were contributing enough, being enough, offering enough. Perhaps you looked into the mirror during those seasons and catalogued only the flaws, missing entirely the resilience that was rearranging itself quietly beneath the surface. Perhaps there were moments of deep disappointment, moments when something you had hoped for did not arrive, when someone you trusted chose to walk away, when circumstances refused to cooperate with the plans you had made so carefully. Perhaps there were times when you felt invisible, when your efforts went unacknowledged and your kindness went unreciprocated, and you wondered whether any of it was worth continuing. Heaven saw every single one of those moments. And heaven was not absent from them, even when it felt that way. Every challenge you survived did not leave you empty. It left deposits. It added another layer of wisdom that now lives in your eyes, in your words, in the particular way you listen when someone else is struggling. Every disappointment stretched your heart, made it larger, made it capable of holding more compassion for the people around you who are walking through their own invisible difficulties. Every tear, every genuine and unperformed grief, watered the garden within your soul that was growing in the dark, in the quiet, in the seasons nobody celebrated. And now that inner garden is beginning to bloom in ways that people encounter before they can categorize them. Some call it charisma, that indefinable quality that makes certain people magnetic without trying to be. Some call it energy, as though you are radiating something their nervous system recognizes as safe and good. Some call it luck, because the simplest explanation for something beautiful that you cannot understand is that fortune must have intervened. Heaven simply calls it light. And light, when it has been tended faithfully through dark seasons, becomes extraordinary. There are people crossing your path right now who need something specific from the world, and what they need is not advice. They do not need another person to solve their problems or offer polished instructions for better living. What they need is proof. Proof that gentleness still exists in real human form. Proof that kindness is not naive or weak but is actually one of the most powerful forces a person can embody. Proof that joy can survive difficult seasons and emerge not smaller but somehow more genuine, more textured, more trustworthy. Without realizing it, you become that proof. You become that reminder simply by being present and being yourself, by not having surrendered the softness that difficult years sometimes demand you abandon. You held on to it. You protected it. And now it serves people who did not even know they were looking for it. Even those who arrive carrying comparison, those who initially measure you against impossible standards or against their own insecurities, eventually stop comparing. Something in your presence interrupts the habit. They set down the measuring tool and simply admire, not in the way people admire a perfect statue, which is cold and unreachable, but in the way people admire a warm fire, which draws them closer and makes them feel they belong near it. Your story has shaped your presence. The accumulated experience of your years, both the beautiful chapters and the chapters you would not choose to reread, have combined to create something that speaks before your words do. People receive something from you before you have said anything meaningful, simply from the way you occupy space, from the quality of your attention, from the unmistakable sense that you are actually here, actually present, actually engaged with what is real. Never underestimate the quiet influence you carry into every room, every conversation, every seemingly unremarkable interaction. A single encouraging sentence, offered at the right moment to the right person, may stay with them for years. It may surface precisely when they are standing at a crossroads, deciding whether to persist or surrender, and your words, which you may have long forgotten, will be the voice they hear urging them forward. You will never know. The most significant things we offer one another often happen far from our awareness. A sincere smile, not a performed one but a real one that reaches your eyes, may interrupt another person's loneliness at a moment when they had begun to believe no one genuinely saw them. That interruption may alter the entire trajectory of their day, and the trajectory of their day may alter decisions that alter everything that follows. A moment of patience, choosing to remain present and unhurried when someone else is moving slowly or expressing themselves imperfectly, may become the precise reason someone refuses to give up on themselves. They will remember that one person waited for them. That one person did not rush them or dismiss them or make them feel like an inconvenience. And that memory will carry them. These things are invisible to the world. They leave no record that any human institution can measure or validate. But they are never invisible to heaven. They are counted among the most important work any soul can do. There are days ahead when you may wonder whether your efforts matter. You may give generously for a long stretch of time and receive nothing measurable in return. You may offer kindness repeatedly into situations that do not seem to improve. You may pour patience into relationships that exhaust you and hope into circumstances that resist it. On those days, you may question whether anyone notices. You may wonder whether the love you give so freely is received at all, or whether it simply dissolves into the air and disappears without effect. The silence of results can be deeply discouraging, and discouragement can whisper convincingly that you have been foolish to keep trying. On those days, return to this message. Return to this reminder. The light within you was never meant to compete with anyone else's light. It was never meant to outshine or to be measured against. It was meant to illuminate the particular path you walk, the particular lives that cross yours, the particular moments that only you are positioned to meet. No one else can do exactly what you do, because no one else has walked precisely your road or carries precisely your combination of gifts, wounds, wisdom, and love. People may continue to say that you look younger than your years suggest, or that you carry an unusual glow, or that you possess something they cannot identify but want to be near. Receive their words with gratitude and with humility. They are not simply complimenting a surface. They are responding to something that runs beneath the surface, something that years of faithful living have deposited in the deepest part of who you are. But remember always that the greatest beauty heaven gives cannot be measured by mirrors or by calendars. It is not housed in any feature that will eventually change, and everything eventually changes. The beauty heaven celebrates is measured by the peace you create in spaces that were anxious before you arrived. It is measured by the hope you inspire in hearts that had almost extinguished their own flame. It is measured by the courage you awaken in others simply by demonstrating that a person can endure, and soften, and love, and still believe. Walk forward without fear of time. Every season adds its own particular richness to the story heaven is writing through your life. The chapters you would not have chosen are often the ones that contain the most essential wisdom. The winters produced the roots. The roots sustain the bloom. If others say you look like a secret heaven has been hiding, receive it not as a claim about perfection but as a recognition of purpose. Every soul carries a unique gift that the world needs and that only that soul can deliver in that particular way. If they say you seem lit from within, remember that light grows brighter each time you choose forgiveness over resentment, knowing how much resentment costs and choosing to pay a different price. It grows brighter each time you choose generosity over self-protection, hope over despair, presence over distraction. If they call you a messenger of grace, understand that grace is almost never delivered through grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It arrives through a helping hand extended quietly, through a listening ear that does not rush toward solutions, through a gentle word that arrives before a harsh one could, through a faithful heart that keeps choosing love even when love is difficult and even when no one is watching. Dear soul, the world rushes to celebrate what is temporary. It builds enormous structures of attention around things that fade, but heaven delights in what endures. Outer appearance will shift with every passing season, as it does for every living thing, because that is how living things are designed. Yet a spirit filled with genuine compassion gains beauty with every passing year that cannot be diminished by anything the calendar can do. Release every fear that you are too old, too late, too far behind some invisible schedule you were never actually assigned to follow. Release every comparison that removes your joy and replaces it with a restlessness that no achievement can quiet. Release every harsh word you have spoken to yourself in private, every ungenerous judgment you have made against your own face, your own body, your own history. Instead, stand in quiet confidence. Not the loud confidence that needs an audience, but the settled confidence that knows itself whether anyone is watching or not. Stand in the knowledge that the same heaven that arranged the stars also arranged your journey, including the difficult parts, including the parts that have not yet resolved, including the parts you are still walking through with more questions than answers. You are not called to resemble anyone else. The world does not need another version of someone it already has. It needs the fullest possible version of you, shaped by everything you have survived, everything you have learned, everything you have loved, and everything you have chosen to keep hoping for. That is why some people stop and take a second look when they meet you. Not because you have defied some law of nature. Not because you conform to an impossible standard that nobody actually meets. But because your presence reminds them, in a way they cannot always articulate, that hope still moves among ordinary people. That kindness still has a face. That grace still walks through the world looking like someone simply living their life with intention and with love. Carry that truth with you into everything that comes next. Walk gently, because gentleness is a form of strength that the world consistently underestimates. Love generously, because generosity creates abundance that multiplies beyond what any single person can track or predict. And let your inner light speak louder than any mirror ever could, louder than any comparison, louder than any doubt that arrives wearing the voice of reason. For the brightest secret heaven has ever kept is not the secret of eternal youth. It is far greater than that. It is the quiet, steady, world-altering radiance of a soul that chooses love again and again, through every season, through every disappointment, through every day when choosing anything else would have been so much easier. Until even strangers pause. Until even skeptics wonder. Until even the weariest hearts begin, without knowing why, to believe again. That is the light you carry. That is the gift heaven placed in you. And the world is better. Measurably and permanently better, because you are walking through it.